Along that line, I think there's always the tendency to believe the woman first, which goes back to the Me Too movement a bit. And then they just think, well, maybe from what they know of the girl, they're like, oh, well, she's so sweet. She would never do XYZ. But then they just automatically place blame on the husband. Speaking of like a married couple with issues. So that I think they need to have more discussion and be more open to hearing both parties before accusing one side and just being on the side of the other. Um, I think if you brought up a point, Matt, about some of the churches not maybe being biblical, there's a ton of churches, especially across North America, that are um, not biblical. We watched the American Gospel. What is it? The Spirit and Fire. There's a ton of churches out there that are not biblical, not preaching from the Word of God directly. And I think if they're not preaching from the pulpit, the Word of God, other areas are going to flounder, including biblical counseling and that sort of thing. And so they may not have a good structure or follow through on what the Bible actually says on how to deal with certain situations that come up. They may not do it appropriately because the foundation of the church is already flawed, if that makes sense. Um, I think another issue is, like you said, Erica, too, some of the churches are so big. How can one man, a pastor, handle all of these issues? And so I think they delegate a lot to the elders, or if there's home groups or small groups in the church, the leaders of those groups are maybe delegated the responsibility of handling a crisis or something that comes up. And maybe those people aren't counselors. Maybe they're not biblical, like maybe they're trained for the small group, but not for handling deeper issues. So there could be like a delegation of responsibility that is maybe faulty, and that they really should the couple say should really go see someone higher up on the leadership chain when they didn't.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and this is good what you guys are sharing here. Now, I'm going to bring more on this when we do the guys chat as well. But there's a guy who helped
Sure.
me as well, especially with this topic, named
Mm,
David Edgington, and he's a biblical counselor out of Arizona. He's got an upcoming book. He wrote a book, a very gentle title, by the way, called "The Abusive Wife," where he actually confronted a lot of
wow.
the stuff that we're talking about here.
Mm,
He's got another one coming up next month as well called White Knights and Reviling Wives. And
wow.
I always, in my mind, thought after I read his first book, he needs to do the abusive pastor next. And this is essentially, from what I
Mm,
understand from the interviews he's done so far, is what this book is going to be. Where it's
wow.
basically, the pastor is trying to kind of come in as the white knight and save the wife from her husband. And in the process, he's basically inserting himself into the marriage,
Mhm.
right? He's saying
Mm-hmm.
this is what you guys need to do. And I mean, one of the textbook examples that's come up, especially for very high expense urban areas, of which I'm sure LB you guys know nothing about in Ontario, but is where pastors basically put a lot of pressure. Husbands may kind of look at the situation and go, okay, if we're going to have kids, if we're going to provide for our kids, if I'm going to provide for my wife, right, we need to find another area, or we need to maybe kind of change our lifestyle. And that means that we're going to have to move away from the church. There's a conflict of interest in there because, obviously with giving and tithes, you move out, that money goes with you. And if there's a conflict in the marriage about whether to do that or not, then, pastors will insert themselves into that situation. And I just use that as an example, but there's a few different life event questions like that, and it immediately causes a lot of division and actually puts gasoline on the fire, right? The way that these situations get handled. So